Peace and power, family. Welcome back to Unto Read with V, Quotes to Live By, where we're unpacking all about love, new visions by Bell Hooks. So grateful for you guys being in this space. And I want to jump right in by naming the chapter, which is chapter 4, Commitment, Let Love Be Love in Me. And just emphasize how in this chapter, she's really talking about commitment to truth, right? Because of the honesty and everything that she's talked about before, but also commitment to self. And how if we don't have an internal foundation of self-love, we won't be able to give and receive love from others, right? All right, so I want to get the first quote actually touches on that. It says, when we see ourselves as we truly are and accept ourselves, we build the necessary foundation for self-love, right? And I think this is so important for me, at least, is because I didn't hear about loving all sides of yourself, even the dark, even the negative, even the bad things that other people might not fuck with. I didn't hear about loving that side of myself until I started hearing about shadow work, right? Before then, it was like, no, you have to change. You have to grow up. You have to be mature. You have to, do all of these things. And it was never on some love all of who you are, every piece of you. You know what I'm saying? It was always like, I have to do something to be better. I'm not perfect now, so something is wrong with me. And in this quote, it really is like, no, you have to accept all of yourself to have a real sturdy foundation of self-love and love in general, right? The next quote says, whether we learn to love ourselves or others will depend on the presence of a loving environment. And this goes back to that question around nature versus nurture, right? The environment that we're growing up in, the environment that you're spending the majority of your time in is really going to influence who you are as a person and your ability to love. It's so essential for us to create the environment that we want. Hence the post-it notes with affirmations. My favorite main man's Tupac love letter, love picture from my little sister. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to surround myself with positivity so that I can be positive. That makes sense, right? The next quote says, we must examine negative thinking and behavioral patterns learned in childhood, right? And actively introduce into our lives constructive, life-affirming thought patterns and behaviors, right? So we have to go back to like, what am I still doing today that I was doing as a little girl that might have been because my mama said, my daddy said, my grandma said, and not because I actually wanted to or I actually think this is right. What voices, because it's my mama voice in my head, y'all. It's my mama voice. I love you, Mom. But it's my mama voice in my head. And it's very critical, right? It's very critical. And it's just like, how am I switching it up to either my own voice or another voice that is more loving? I don't know if you guys seen the movie Turning Red yet, and it's a small spoiler, but there's a moment in the film where the young lady is like thinking into herself around like what makes her feel calm and loved and supported, right? And it's her homies, her homegirls being like, you're amazing, you're so smart, we love you, is what actually calms her down. But in real life, her mom asks like, what is it that's helping you keep your shit together? And she's like, oh, the love you have for me. You know what I'm saying? So to her mom, she's saying that voice inside her head, that's that constructive, affirming voice, is her, the mother, when in reality, it's that critical voice from childhood that's not letting you be great and be who you really are, right? And you have to change that voice to, like she did with her friends, something that actually affirms you, actually gives you love, right? And that's not something that makes you critical of yourself, right? Yeah, and the next quote that was after that I thought kind of touched on this was like, whether a person remembers the details of being abused is not important, right? So even if you don't remember like where this voice comes from, where this feeling comes from, why do I respond in this way, it doesn't matter, right? You know that shit ain't working out for you. You know it's negative, so change it. what would be better for me? What can I do differently in this moment that'll help me kind of get this together, myself together, right? The next quote says, "The wounded heart learns self-love by first overcoming low self-esteem." This hit. This smacked me because confidence is key. And we always say that or hear it, but we really do not understand how that confidence in ourselves makes it possible to do everything else. Makes it possible to, Pooh is eating something and I'm like, what are you eating? But yeah, it makes us possible to believe in the possibility of our dreams, right? And to move towards them, to act on them. Confidence is essential. Because the next quote we have is, "Because we have learned to believe negativity is more realistic, it appears more real than any positive voice." And this goes back to that voice in our head, right? When you're hearing the voice and the little angel or the devil on your shoulder, you're more likely going to believe what the negative person is saying or the negative voice is saying compared to that affirming voice that you're trying to insert, because we're more likely to believe in bad things. We are more likely to believe, our brain is more likely to process the threat as being real than the love as being real. And if you want to hear more about brain work, you need to get into The Body Keeps the Score. That book really unpacks our brain and how our brain works and responds to things. And it definitely is looking for the bad and looking for the negative to protect us, right? To keep us alive. So take that and run with it, right? This negative voice in my head, is it the truth? Or am I interpreting it as the truth because it's a bad thought, right? The next quote I want to get into says, "The more we accept ourselves, the better prepared we are to accept responsibility in all areas of our lives," right? And I think this is so important because it goes back to the earlier point around acceptance equating to a foundation of self-love, right? When you have that confidence in yourself and that ability in yourself, you can take responsibility for more things in more areas of your life. When we are not confident and when we don't have that foundation of self-love, we play the blame game. We blame everything, and I'm speaking from experience. I am the we, right? We blame everything on this negative energy that was in the room, or like they don't like me or something like that, when in reality, like, no, if you really accepted all parts of yourself, you can see where you show up in harm, right? And how what you're doing can be harmful and how what you're doing can affect somebody else in a different way, right? It's so simple, but also so deep. The next quote says, "Many of us have learned that passivity lessened the possibility of attack." And that is nothing but the truth, Ruth, right? We are people pleasers. We put on the mask, we put on the face, especially Black people as a community during slavery and even still today, because we still working for the man and doing all of the things. Shout out to the motorcycle outside. But yeah, I think that we do that to protect ourselves. We are passive. We are people pleasers. We do these things in order to protect ourselves, right? And what is really doing though is taking us away from our real true feelings and our real true thoughts. Because we're trying to be passive and not have anything pop off in this moment, we're ignoring what we really feel, and that is going to allow it to continue to happen. We're never going to be able to get through it because we are putting up this mask of understanding and acceptance, right? The next quote I want to get into says, "Most people do not grow up learning to have that the work we choose to do will have a major impact on our capacity to be self-loving." And I told y'all she was going to get into this, and It's like a whole section in here just around work. And I promise you, like, please, if you don't read nothing, read that alone. Because the next quote that I pulled from that is, doing work we hate assaults our self-esteem and self-confidence. So even if you do it well, right? Even if you are very good at this task, if you hate it, you're hurting yourself. You're beating yourself up. You're making yourself uncomfortable, right? Because you're not doing what you love. You're not giving yourself the space to be who you are and to be happy and to experience joy, because you're doing things that make you feel bad, make you angry, make you pissed off, right? You see how it relates? She also has another quote in here that says, individuals who are dissatisfied and miserable on the job bring this negative energy home. And this hit so hard when I read it, because growing up, I really did feel like I was the cause of like all of the problems in our family. I was like, man, every day my mom come home mad, and like it's always, I don't never do it right. Like it's either the dishes, school, it's something always. And I never realized that no, she just hated her job. She didn't hate me. She wasn't always mad at me. She just hated the place that she worked at, right? And that showed up in how she felt when she came home. All of the things she couldn't get out, couldn't say, couldn't do, because it is a place of business. She comes home and wants to do that. She wants to release that energy and that negativity. And I just happened, me and my little brother just happened to be the people in the house that would deal with that, right? So give your parents grace. And anybody that's in your household that doesn't really like their job, because until they find another one, they are literally going to be beating themselves up by going to work every day. It's literally a fight and a battle to go to work every day. The job I do, I love so much. I work with youth. It's in social justice. Like, it really makes me feel like I'm making a positive contribution to my community. When I was in law school, double majoring, I was also getting a master's at the same time in education. I took on a part-time job at where I work now because it moved me so much. It motivated me so much to just live and do and be myself. So yes, please, please, please find a place of work that you actually enjoy so that you can move with love. Bell Hooks says that she only wants to work in places that are respectful of her, with people that love her and that she loves or at least likes, and that really influences her ability to get the job done and to show up at home in other ways. So read this chapter, y'all. The last couple of quotes I want to read come from one paragraph, and I'm just going to kind of loop them together. It says, self-love is the foundation of our loving practice. Without it, our other efforts to love fail. If you don't first love yourself, you cannot love anybody else. It's very hard to hear. It's very hard to sit with, but it's the truth. It's the truth, Ruth. Whenever we interact with others, the love we give and receive is always necessarily conditional. Until you are full on your own self, your own love, your own acceptance, you will not be able to give and receive without conditions. The next part says, unconditional love, that is the grounding for sustained acceptance and affirmation, right? That's what unconditional love is. It is that foundation for acceptance and affirmation in others and in self, right? So if you are not accepting and affirming that other, that ain't unconditional love, baby. It's a condition attached to that. They have to be the way that you want them to be in order to receive your love. The last thing I want to touch on before I let y'all go, y'all know I don't be on here long, is we are able to reach out to others from a place of fulfillment and not from a place of lack when we love ourselves unconditionally. Okay? You're not reaching out for friends and family and community because you're lacking anything within yourself, because you feel unfulfilled. You're reaching out because you have enough to give away. You have enough to share. So think about it and read the book. Read it. Love y'all.